Ladies, gentlemen, and Harajam of all ages, as you're starting off your journey through Diablo 4, you are probably doing your best to get to World Tier 3 as quickly as possible, as that is the first major checkpoint of the game, really. And while you can always just blitz the main story quests, that could well also leave you underleveled for the remaining content that follows, and make your journey even just a little bit harder. Whether you're feeling confident in your leveling speed and your ability to kill enemies with ease, or if you feel like things are going a bit slow and you're struggling a little bit, it could always get at least a bit easier than it is. And while you could spend hours sidetracked on a detour to get some slightly better gear, there are also a number of ways to majorly increase your power with surprisingly little effort or time spent. That said, today we're going to go over a ton of fast ways to gain power while you're leveling through Diablo 4, things that you can do before getting to World Tier 3 to make your character notably stronger without a massive amount of inputs. First up then, something extremely simple, but it bears repeating for anyone who hasn't caught on: the Altars of Lilith. These statues are littered just all over the world of Sanctuary, and every time that you interact with one, you get some sort of permanent realm-wide buff, meaning that it applies to every character on the realm, which means all your characters. Most of them are a couple of points in the various main stats: intelligence, willpower, dexterity, or strength. Some of them can give increased caps on Murmering Obols. Some of them even give you Paragon Points that you can collect before level 50, though you still can't actually use them until you do hit level 50 anyways. Well, it's not really worth your time to just run around in circles actively collecting all of the Altars of Lilith while doing nothing else, at least not this early on in your journey. One big thing is to just keep an eye out for any that you may be walking past. 2 stat points isn't a big deal on its own one time, but you can easily grab 10 of these per zone just essentially by coincidence, and then that's 20 points of stats. It just really adds up and can make a surprising amount of difference by the end. There are also a few interactive maps already out there around for Diablo 4 at this point that can show you where these altars are on the map if you want to sort of set yourself a convenient path along your questing that also stops at these altars. One other big thing that does for you then is give you renown points for each region. These are actually another big deal as far as getting power easily. If you open your map and press W, you'll see the renown system, your progress in it in the current region, and the rewards that you can get for this at each level. The first level is always bonus XP and gold, but then also a full-on bonus skill point. Second level is XP and gold and 1 maximum potion. Third level is XP and gold and another bonus skill point. Fourth level is XP, gold, and max obol capacity, and then the final level is XP, gold, and then 4 Paragon Points. This, as a system as a whole, is massively helpful as far as little power bumps. The first level of renown is super easy to get even if you are more or less only following the story quests. Usually it'll get you most of the way there just by uncovering areas and grabbing waypoints, even Altars of Lilith that you happen to walk past. So at the very least, make a point of getting level 1 renown in each region on your journey while leveling for 5 extra skill points total. Sure, it's pretty obvious. 5 skill points? That's a massive boost in power. That's a lot of input in your build. That's a lot more that you can actually do. The thing is, that is just the start as far as the system in general, because again, this can give you extra maximum potions for each region, which heavily increases your survivability. It can give you a second set of bonus skill points per region, and it can also give you 4 Paragon Points per region. On a similar note, talking about potions, we should probably talk about upgrading potions. When you hit level 10, you get a priority quest to visit the alchemist and upgrade your potion, and many players probably just sort of forget about this after that interaction, just going on with their questing. But you can also upgrade your potion at level 20, 30, 45, 60, 70, 80, and 90. The difference between the level 1 potion and the max level potion is just insane. So if you are ever having survivability issues, maybe just have a quick check that you've upgraded your potion to the maximum that you can. This is generally really easy to do. It just requires herbs that you can pick up as you travel through the various zones, and as long as you don't just walk by the herbs constantly without picking them up, it's pretty simple to keep up with the demands of these upgrades. The only exception that I have found is crushed beast bones, which are required for the level 30 potion upgrade. These theoretically drop from any beast or animal type enemy, but I had a really terrible time, really bad luck actually getting them and trying to find them. However, there is a named NPC on the eastern side of Skull's Glen, located right over here on this spot. If you go here and you kill them, they guaranteed drop 5 crushed beast bones on death every time, and they have a relatively frequent respawn timer too, so you can just beat them up as much as you need to collect this item. But on top of that, that leads entirely into our next point: named elites. Across the map, there are a number of these types of enemies, named elites. They are elites out in the open world that spawn in specific locations and have an actual name, rather than just a description of their emotion and species together. These are proper characters, and they have better loot drops than regular elites. If you ever come across any of these, you absolutely should kill it. They have decent legendary drop rates, and even if you don't get a legendary from from them, you'll still probably get some sort of decent gear too. Back to the alchemist then, there's the potion upgrading, but they also have a second function, which are elixirs. If you haven't crafted or used an elixir, then you are simply missing out on a big way to increase your power. As a base effect across every single elixir in the game, they give you 5% increased experience gain while active from any possible activity. So if you are not using these, you are simply leveling slower than you should be, simple as that. On top of that, each elixir has its own unique effect, from anything like resistance to unique different elements, to boosting your damage against specific enemy types, to giving you thorns for some damage reflection. If you specifically craft elixirs that match the activity that you're undertaking or your build in some way, it will simply make you more powerful. Not to mention that 5% experience is genuinely very important in the long run.
You learn quickly.
Past that, an important thing to mention is the Codex of Power. This is a new system for Diablo 4 where you can actually unlock certain legendary aspects permanently so that you can apply them to gear freely. The main thing about this is that creating a legendary in this way guarantees that it will have the lowest possible RNG power roll on it, but more often than not, having the effect just in general is a big enough deal for a legendary that it's worth it. That said, for every build in the game, there are 2 or 3 minimum legendary aspects that can make you insanely stronger than you are as a base that are available as these Codex of Power aspects. So have a look at your Codex. Check out what the powers that are available for your class are, think about which ones would benefit the skills and playstyle that you are using, and every one of these will tell you what dungeon in what area unlocks it. You can even click on the aspect to put a pin on your map where the dungeon is exactly, even if you haven't seen the dungeon before, which is silly efficient as far as getting to them and then farming these out. So essentially, don't go around collecting every one of these before you're level 50, but work out a few powers that you'd benefit massively from having and work out the dungeon that they come from. Then just make a stop there along your questing journey when you're close by and you'll get massive power spikes. With that, then there are 2 more activities that I recommend paying attention to. The first one is the Purveyor of Curiosities. On your map, this is a little money bag with a question mark as a vendor in main towns. If you talk to them, you'll notice that they actually sell unspecified gear for a price dependent on the slot, as well as keys, for a currency called Murmering Obols. Mostly this currency will come from completing open world events, but it can come from a number of other places, and while for the most part, I don't recommend using this currency excessively until you reach World Tier 3, it can be extremely useful if, for example, you haven't had a good weapon drop in ages, and your weapon is just super out of date. Every bit of damage that you do in this game is dependent on your weapon's level, really your base damage in the first place, so in that type of situation, head here and buy some weapons until you get an upgrade. The legendary drop rate from this vendor is actually pretty decent, but you can also get grays, so don't expect a perfect drop every time, but it is a way to target gear in a specific slot. Outside of that, they also sell whispering keys. I recommend walking around with 1 or 2 of these at pretty much all times, just in case you come across a silent chest. These are chests out in the open world that spawn randomly and have a golden glow and a lock on them. You cannot unlock these without whispering keys, and they generally have a good drop rate of decent gear, including things like legendaries. So it's just nice to have a key or 2 on you constantly, just in case you run into one of these chests, and the keys only cost 20 obols, which is genuinely very little in the grand scheme of things. Then finally, this one is only for once you've finished the main story of Diablo 4. If you straight up focus it without doing any of the side activities or side quests, you can probably reach this point even as early as level 40, which is sort of silly, and in order to reach World Tier 3, you need to complete the Capstone Dungeon, which is scaled to level 50, so you'll probably be just a little bit too early to get that done if you're level 40. That said, when you finish the main story is when you unlock the first of what is considered the endgame activities, even in World Tier 1 and 2. It gives fantastic experience, and it gives you gear and targeted slots to make yourself notably more powerful surprisingly quickly. Whispers of the Dead. Once you've interacted with this giant creepy tree and done the initial priority quest here, you will see marked red activities all over your map. Each of these is worth a certain amount of favors. It'll tell you if you hover over it, with something like a cellar only being worth 1, but something like a dungeon being worth 5. If you collect 10 of these favors across your map, bring them back to the Whispers tree, and you can pick a loot cache from 3 choices. You get a bunch of experience and some targeted gear upgrades. If you go past 10 favors, it will roll over into your next collection of 10, so honestly, doing Whispers dungeons are just the most efficient thing to do, just back to back really, 5 at a time, and don't worry about overcapping. That way, you do dungeons, which are good experience and decent loot, and you complete Whispers of the Dead, which again is even more good experience and also loot. And that's it really, a nice pile of ways to increase your power on the way to World Tier 3 in the earlier stages of Diablo 4. Ways to make yourself yourself even more powerful and make your journey even that little bit more comfortable. Some of them are simple, quick activities that you can just do along your way without even really making a detour, and some of them are more things that you have to focus on a little bit once finishing the main story. But all of these are doable in World Tier 1 and 2, from level 1 to 50, and make that journey even easier and quicker if you pay attention to them. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you out in your adventure through Sanctuary. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.